All right. Let's settle down. It's just crypto.
I'm Just, but my mama call me Justin. Welcome back to my DFK Dark Summoning Guide for Beginners. This is part two. We're going to be focused on the tavern in this part, buying and matching two heroes together in the Dark Summoning Pit in the hopes of making a good combat hero. First thing we need to understand is what matters and what doesn't in terms of the current hero's attributes that are going to pass on in the Dark Summoning Pit. The main thing is rarity. For my example, I'm going to do an uncommon floor summon. You can do two commons together. That is super budget. You can do two rares together or a legendary and an uncommon. It averages the rarity together. But to keep things simple, I'm going to do two uncommons. You can quite easily see how that's going to create an uncommon floor as opposed to a rare and a common, which also does the same thing. But here in the Nifty Tavern, there are pretty much any options you would want. You might have to look around and try a few things to get used to it. I can filter by uncommon first, but I also want to filter by level because the hero I make, I want to use right away. I don't want to wait, and I don't really want to level it up from level 1, although that is certainly possible with patrols. That's part of the idea. And I also just want to search the 6 classes that are available for PvP right now. If I do 2 level 5s and they're all this class, you don't have a 100% chance of getting the class you're looking for in terms of a PvP eligible hero right now. Like that has its skills unlocked is what I mean by that. I personally find it difficult to use. Why are all these archers here, by the way? Just noticing that. Somebody must have just dumped a bunch of archers. That's cool. My thought was I find it difficult to visualize that. That's why I use DFK analytics. Just basically, it reads the blockchain, offers the same stuff that you could see in the tavern, just a little bit more readable for me. So this is, up to you. You can definitely use the tavern like I was just showing you, but for the rest of this, I'm going to be using analytics. So this is where I was before. Uncommon, these 6 classes, level 5 minimum, and you can adjust all of these columns actually to see exactly what you want. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that or not. I am going to just look on DFK chain. Forgot about that. It shows the Metis ones and Cyrano ones as well, so much as they exist. So what matters, in addition to rarity, which we've already filtered for, so we don't need to worry about anymore, is level. 2 level 5s together are going to make a level 5. That's what I want. Also, level 5 was chosen for a reason. You get a stat bonus from tiers at level 5. You get another one at level 10, 15, 20, etc. And you do not get any sort of bonus like that for level 4s and below. So stat boost 1 is also a thing that matters. At the low levels, I would say it matters quite a lot because the 2 points that you get from that are really going to come into play immediately, whereas stat boost 2 is a percentage thing. That's going to matter more as your hero gets to level 20 and higher. If you can get some with summons, it'll increase your rarity chances a little bit. I'm not too worried about generation either. If you can get lower generations, that will decrease your cost a little bit. But what I really want to focus on is traits when I'm shopping for this purpose. Subclass definitely matters a lot, but less so at the low levels, kind of the same thing as stat boost 2. But let's look more in depth on these traits because this is where I really want to focus in my shopping. And in order to communicate that to a brand new player, let's look at what the traits do briefly. Not going to do a full tier list, but I do have some thoughts on what I'm looking for patrols. A lot of this is speculative because I have not played patrols yet, but I have a pretty good idea of what to expect. I actually think heal is going to be really, really important in terms of the basics because you're looking to sustain. The range traits, Poison Blade, Blinding Winds, Critical Aim, and Death Mark, these are all range traits. When you have a class such as Berserker, Warrior, Knight that cannot do range normally, those are extremely important, especially Death Mark, though it depends on how they structure these encounters. If there's a big boss kind of at the end of these sort of dungeons, then Deathmark will be extremely valuable, I think, because you just Deathmark the boss. What we've seen so far is just a bunch of like add-ons, but I haven't seen much at all. I'm guessing there will be a boss at some point, so I think Deathmark will be excellent. I think Poison Blade will get better if there's a boss. It'll be less good if there's not. Blinding Winds is really solid at always. So I think these 4 are kind of at the same tier. I would go Deathmark, Blinding Winds, Poison Blade, and then critical aim in terms of power. I would have heal ahead of all those. So I'm going to look for heals. Secondarily, I'm going to look for damage actives in the basics for these 4 traits. Iron Skin might end up being pretty decent. Depends on how it's structured. Like I said, I don't know. I think speed will be worse than it is in PvP or in hunts because this will be less strategic. It'll be more grindy where you don't really want something like this. In terms of advanced, this is as far as I'm going to go on the tree. I'm not going to buy any elites because then we're in a different price range. But I do want to give myself the ability to make elites if possible. And briefly, how the genetics work is Advanced 1 and Advanced 2 combine to make Elite 1. Whereas if you back up, Basic 1 and Basic 2 combine to make Advanced 1. That's how the mutations work. I will link Dr. Zipper's article that explains all of this in detail. Many years old, but still completely applicable. So I'm very interested in making Advanced 1 and Advanced 2. Because A, they're both excellent. Exhaust and Daze, these are like really good versions of the ranged attacks that I was targeting in the basics. But what I know will be good regardless, one of the most powerful traits in the game, that is stun. So even though it's not going to matter too much for the low content, whether you have the stun or not, you may as well plan to try to get lucky if you're going to get your max value out of doing these summons. Like, we're probably not going to end up with a stun, but we might as well go down the route of Basic 1, Basic 2, Advanced 1, Advanced 2 to end up with a stun potentially down the road, because you can either sell that or you can use that in PvP or hunts where it is extremely good. Whereas Explosion, Hardened Shield, and Second Wind are much less valuable if you were to sell the resulting hero because you didn't need it or didn't want it. So I'm going to be less focused on that, though I do think Second Wind might actually be good in patrols where it's quite weak in PvP. I'm going to look for heal, first of all in basics, then kind of a tier of Poison Blade, Blinding Wind, Critical Aim, Deathmark, not in that order, but all in a tier, and I'm going to try to avoid the other 3. I want Exhaust and Daze in advanced, or the ability to give myself a chance to mutate into Exhaust or Daze, and if at all possible, I really want a chance to mutate into stun if it's in my budget. I'm not going to overspend trying to get that, but that is the key to getting lucky and actually making money and being profitable on these type of summons, is giving yourself the chance to get a stun. And if you get a bunch of rarity on that stun, like a rare or legendary, then it becomes like exponentially more valuable. Passive traits are a little less involved, I think. This is going to be a shorter one. A, because I don't know what to expect from the enemies in terms of Daze, Blind, Fear, Silence, Poison. It could be that they silence and therefore Chatterbox is extremely valuable on your casters. It could be that they fear and Fearless is extremely valuable on everybody. I don't know that yet. Foresight, Clutch, and Duelist are all good but not great. But more importantly, Basic 1, Basic 2, Basic 3, and Basic 4, so maybe Headstrong would be more preferable to the rest of these, lead into the path I want to go down to, which is Advanced 1, Advanced 2. Same as I explained before, the Basic 1 and Basic 2 mutate into Advanced. Advanced 1, Advanced 2 mutate into Giant Slayer, which is the best trait in the game. Not the most valuable traits. I kind of skipped over it before. There are another tier of traits that is just not going to be in our price range at all, so I don't worry about it. It is extremely valuable if you can get rarity on a Giant Slayer hero. So while this is not very good in patrols, it is not very good in hunts either, it is extremely good in PvP, just to make that clear. Also, I think Leadership, Efficient, and Intimidation are all excellent. In the low-level content for patrols, I think it depends on how it rounds, right? Because Leadership and Intimidation, I kind of don't think that much about in high levels where you're doing hundreds of damage. But if it's only 5%, if the enemy does less than 20 damage and you have Intimidation of 5% less, I don't know if it rounds. What I mean is if an enemy is going to do like, I don't know, 15 damage, does that do 15 or 14 if it deals 5% less? Depends on the rounding. I'm not sure. I don't think that matters too much, but Leadership is probably a little better because I know my guys are going to do more than 20 damage. I don't really want to play this with level 1s personally. I'm going to be more from like level 3 to level 8, by the way. Another reason I want to summon these level 5s and above, just because I think the game is a little bit more enjoyable at that, but it's certainly fine to do the same thing I'm doing here, but with level 1s. And then Leadership and Intimidation would be worse, but it's fine to invest in these. These are excellent traits. Efficient is also good, also matters about the rounding because your mana costs are scaled down significantly at the low levels, and I don't know that if you are spending less than 10 mana, if you get any benefit from Efficient at all. But regardless, I like these 3 traits. This is what I really want to get Toxic can be good, mostly on an archer, also on a warrior or berserker to a lesser degree, but I don't focus on toxic as much because I'm not as interested in trying to mutate for last stand, even though it's fine. It's just such a big step down from Giant Slayer that if I can get leadership or an efficient mutation chance, I do want to spend up for that, and I do want to try to focus on this top part of the tree. With all that said, it was a lot, I know. Let's go shopping. So let's start by doing a filter for 2 heals. That would be pretty much optimal in terms of basics, see what is available. I think these will start to go for a premium. As you can see, they have already started to go for a premium for sure. And in fact, there is nothing available below level 10 right now. I bet somebody bought that up. So let's pare down a little bit. Let's go for 1 heal and a passive that I want. No good so far. So, okay, let me, back to beginners. You can do the same thing in the tavern that I just did right there. Sorry, I just blew by that, assuming people knew what the hell I was doing. You can click heal, and it will now filter all of these by heal. That's what I did the first time I did heal. It's going to show you the same thing that we just saw. Heal. Active 1, active 2, passive 1, passive 2. That's what each of these heroes have in their card. So heal, it should be, yep, this is exactly what we just saw in DFK Analytics. Now if I take active 1, heal, active or passive 1, leadership, efficient, menacing, we're looking for a bargain, something that slips through the cracks. This does not look like a bargain to me, and also, yeah, there's just not a whole lot available as we are being a little bit more picky with this search. So let's move from passive 1 to passive 2, and I still have the heal in the same spot. Also a little bit out of my price range for this. Heal in active 2. See, okay, so here's something finally slipped through the cracks, something appealing to me. Oh, excellent. This is exactly what I mean by kind of just searching. You can see visually quite well like this how it slipped through the cracks here at 75. So I could just buy it. It's probably good enough to just buy, honestly, with that leadership. It's got green decks, which I love for an archer. Speed, I'm not thrilled about. Clutch is great. This is a really good hero. I could even just buy this blind, to be honest. But what I'm going to do is show you how to search for a partner before you buy. And in ADFK, there is a paid feature. Speaking of which, I had to log in, and you don't have to commit. If you want ADFK like on month by month, it's like $15, but you can basically just like rent it for an afternoon. That's what I would recommend if you're starting out. But anyways, what I can do with this feature is paste in that number that went to my clipboard like it said it did here at the bottom. And this is the easy way to do it. It's actually a little bit harder in analytics, because when you find the same hero in analytics, it'll be here, it'll stick out the same way that it's kind of underpriced a little bit. It doesn't give you the thing to copy paste. You can double click and get the last 6 digits, and what it's telling you here is really confusing if you don't understand it. Basically, you're gonna replace those last 6 zeros with the 6 digits I just copy pasted. So in this instance 2, because it was summoned in Sarandale, it tells you that. It's got the Jade thing, and it tells you this here. So those start with a 2. Crystal Veil starts with a 1. For a 6-digit code, you do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 6 zeros total. Then you can paste the last 6 digits that I copied, and this will be the same thing as doing this. So that's a reason to use the tavern, I think, more so than analytics for a new player, because this takes a little bit of getting used to, but it's showing you the same information, and like I said, I prefer it. We're going to search for a dark summoning pair, so you can click this, or if you forget, it's fine. It just makes it so that you're not worried about summons and such. You want for sale only, as opposed to searching the entire catalog. We don't care about summons or generation too much, so this is fine. We do care about level. We want minimum 5 to match with our level 5. And what I want is to have 2 abilities that mutate. So I have 3 basics and 1 advanced with this hero. Basic, 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 advanced. So what I want is 2 of these 4 to mutate and give me a chance. What I really want is 1 of these 2 to mutate along with leadership, but we'll see. It's asking a lot. If we're on a budget, I want to pare down to only do this with uncommons. So I'm getting another level 5 or higher uncommon, another Codex hero, which is Warrior Knight, Archer Priest, Berserker, Seer. If you wanted to only search for the Giant Slayer, you would do it like this, and minimum ability to mutate would be advanced, so just my leadership. But I think we start here and see what's available. This is a little more reasonable, because we're probably not going to be able to get a Giant Slayer mutation, though we'll try. Okay, it took just a little bit to do that query, but it came back with 57. That seems right. We want to look at abilities and we want to sort, I think it was already sorted by price. And let's see. So our main class is going to be here on the left, subclass on the right. And it's going to show you the two mutations, at least two mutations. That's what we searched for here with the yellow or orange color coded. So this actually looks pretty good. This seer here has a daze. We're interested in daze. We can make a second daze. We can make a leadership. So when you click on this link here, it'll bring you up to a hero data page. This is the free feature from ADFK that people use a ton. So it's also, I would say, mispriced for a uncommon level 7 with daze. Or not mispriced, but like it's an outlier in terms of price, and this is a great pair. Okay, so you're probably not going to be able to do as well as I just did, kind of just by dumb luck. But if you try multiple times, like, I don't know, try and then wait a day and then try again or whatever, you can eventually find some really good pairs. And this is actually quite cheap as well. It just so happened, like, I would pay up for this. Like, if this was 120 or so, I would pay it. But yeah, we just got a really good deal here. So it's going to show you in ADFK all of the chances for these two pairs going together. You can not focus on the part on the right, these recessives. If you want to, that's just a little more complicated. You just focus on the dominance. That's what's going to show on the card. That's what you're most focused on. But the recessives do play into these chances. So this is the main part you want to look at. It's not showing the dark summon odds. We're going to have an uncommon floor, but we're going to be about 40% to get an archer, 37.5 and 11. So this is really good. You'll have at least a 75% chance of getting one of the two classes you picked, but I just so happen to have priest in the recessives here and here. So therefore we have even a better chance, a 90% chance to get a codex hero. So this looks like a great pair. We got 37% chance to pass our days, 37% chance to pass our leadership. When I say pass, I mean these already have leadership in days, so just going on to the next generation. The mutation, that's what we searched for. That's what was orange. Those only have a 14 to 17% depending on the recessives in order to pass, but this looks pretty good to me in terms of a budget combat hero that you can make a really nice hero out of a pair like this. So I'm actually going to buy these right now. They hit all my criteria I was talking about earlier in terms of the traits. Like this is, I mean, obviously I'd rather it was double heal. You can always do better, but that's kind of exactly what you want to look for on a budget. One thing to note, I did search for and gave myself the ability to pair an archer with a seer, which I don't mind to start with. If I really needed an archer, I would, but I could just do archer and archer at a 75% chance. But I think if you're starting with 0, which is where this is focused, you want to give yourselves a chance at a better pair. So these two are the heroes we're going to set up for the next video. Let's talk a little bit about what we've accomplished here. In terms of matching rarity, it's going to be, like I said, an uncommon floor. We're going to have about a 20-something% chance of getting lucky and improving our floor, which would be great. We don't have any summons to increase that, unfortunately. This archer is high on the generation. He's a generation 6. That's going to increase our crystal cost here, but it's still only 23. It's not much. It would have been 10 or whatever if he had been Gen 2. So the crystal cost on that is not very much, but that definitely does count into what we're spending. So far, we are at 160 crystal, a little over $1.50 or so. And we're going to spend some more on the stone next time, as well as some tiers and some crystals eventually to get the final product. So it's going to be a couple bucks, but not that expensive really. That was a really good pair just kind of sitting there, and using the match feature on this just like really was very valuable in finding this. It's really hard to eyeball this type of stuff with the tavern. It just kind of jumps out at you the way you can search like this quite easily, and it color codes and you can just see what you're looking at here. This is what we shopped for. If you were to spend more time on looking at uncommons, you might be able to do even better than this. You might be able to get a Giant Slayer mutation possible for a cheap price, but this is the start of a patrol roster. Hopefully I'm going to get either a seer or an archer, and then I'll just need 2 more. I might pare down my search as I keep going. Like if I summon an archer and then next time I summon a priest, I'll pare down my third summon, so it's only going to be possibly a warrior, knight, or a berserker. But I don't mind mixing classes to find the best possible pair here at the start. You can actually get access to this feature. It is a paid feature for a minimum of 25 crystal, so 25 cents. So if you want to just spend a couple hours making your team or whatever, you can spend 25 crystal. It's long enough to basically use it. And then if you want to come back in a couple days, try it again, hop in the ADFK Discord if you have any questions about that. But that was part two. We have identified a good hero at the floor based on the traits we wanted to find. If I hadn't found something with those type of searches, I got rid of the heal, just trying for an advanced. And if that didn't work, I would have just searched for an advanced active, such as daze or exhaust, and gone that route instead if I couldn't find the passive that I wanted. But I found one, and then I found a good partner, and that was based on the traits that I talked about in the beginning that I'm looking for combat. This is subject to change. This is subjective. This is not a fact or anything, but this is what I think will matter in patrols based on what I know matters in hunts and PvP. So next time we're going to kill those two heroes and see what we end up with. I'll see you then.